Coming up on this edition of VCU InSight,
the VCU campus joins the nation in prayers for those in Boston.
A visiting poet wins the Pulitzer Prize,
a walk through Richmond's history,
and a classic play debuts at VCU.
All that and more?
VCU InSight starts right now. Hello and welcome to VCU InSight. I'm Allie Nasta.
And I'm Shelley Andrews. Thanks for joining us. Tonight, the VCU campus is still joining the rest of the nation in expressing shock and disbelief about the bombings in Boston.
As of this broadcast, Boston police say 3 are dead and more than 150 are injured. One of the dead includes an 8-year-old boy. Hours after the blast, President Obama spoke from the White House.
And we reaffirmed that on days like this, there are no Republicans or Democrats. We are Americans united in concern for our fellow citizens.
VCU students say they share in that concern.
I couldn't imagine being there.
Yeah, my older sister, she works half a block away from the first explosion, and her best friend was actually running in the marathon. So she was outside when the explosions happened.
I can't imagine people wanting to inflict that kind of suffering on other people. I find that just mind-blowing.
Just last weekend, Richmond streets were full with more than 40,000 runners for the UCrop's Monument 10K. John Lugbill from Sportbackers, the group who puts on the race, says we will work with the Richmond Police Department and review security procedures before next year's 10K. He also says that it's too early to have any definite plans. Sportsbackers extends his thoughts and prayers to those affected in Boston.
That very same day, artists from around the country were recognized for excellence. Sharon Olds won the Pulitzer Prize in poetry. She recently visited the University of Richmond for National Poetry Month. Olds is an 8-time award-winning modern American poet who's known for her funny and straightforward poems such as The Father and The Dead and the Living. She won for her collection of poems about the breakup of her marriage. After reading a few poems at U of R, Olds took questions and also gave a few pointers for aspiring poets.
Hearing her poetry tonight was really inspiring, and I used to write poetry a lot, and now I just want to get back on that.
Olds ended the night signing books and autographs.
Some critics describe it as modern-day slavery. It's called human trafficking. According to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, it happens in more than 150 countries and affects children in 20% of the cases. InSight's Charisse Bonnerball shows how area organizations are bringing awareness about human trafficking to VCU and the Richmond community.
All right, listen to me.
In the blockbuster hit Taken, actor Liam Neeson's character is on a mission to save his daughter, who has been kidnapped and thrown into the human trafficking ring. Human trafficking, as defined under the U.S. federal law, is when people are forced or coerced into commercial sex acts or any forced labor. In early April, members of InterVarsity Christian Fellowship held a 3-day educational event at the VCU campus called Trafficking.
I think the main misconception is that it doesn't happen here. I think a lot of people are like, oh, it happens in like European countries, right?
Sheetal says 600,000 people are trafficked into the U.S. each year. The event's first day revolved around what they called the Wall of Injustice. Outreach members say it symbolized God's disappointment about human trafficking and overcoming it. Students were quizzed on their knowledge of human trafficking. If they failed, they wrote unaware on the wall. During Day 2 events, volunteers passed out t-shirts such as this one with different words to represent pain that victims have gone through and to make those unaware more aware. The Richmond Justice Initiative is a faith-based nonprofit that battles against human trafficking. Intern Sally Bailey admits she didn't notice the issue until, she says, she saw it herself.
I would get home at night and I would see these women waiting on the streets, and I was so curious.
The InterVarsity Christian Fellowship will have weekly meetings for students interested in doing more. For VCU InSight, I'm Sharice Bonnaball.
If you know anyone who is a victim or you suspect trafficking, you can call the Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-888-373-7888.
A 60s fashion trend is bringing awareness to a good cause. The Alpha Epsilon Phi sorority recently hosted its 5th annual Tie-Dye to Save a Life event on the lawn outside Harris Hall on VCU's Monroe Park campus. Dozens of students tie-dyed t-shirts to benefit the Elizabeth Glazer Pediatric AIDS Foundation.
It's great. It brings awareness to the cause, which is definitely needed. I mean, there are medications out there that can prevent a child from contracting AIDS while in the womb.
The sorority says it's already raised more than $1,500, trumping last year's donations. Those donations are helping from a local level, but what about on a global scale? InSight's Trey Herbert is in our Richmond newsroom to tell us about how a far-reaching organization is helping to save lives. Good evening, Trey.
Good evening, Shelley. In some parts of the world, meningitis, cleft lips, and malaria are common childhood conditions. Richmond is the headquarters for a nonprofit that's trying to do something to change that.
Children in poor and developing countries are getting a new lease on life because of the help they are receiving from a nonprofit organization here in Richmond. The World Pediatric Project provides life-saving services to over 21,000 kids a year.
Our vision is that regardless of geography, every child will have access to critical care that they need.
Jamie Cooney, the Director of Volunteers, helps give the families emotional and social support.
It's the first time leaving their country. Sometimes it's even their first time leaving their village, their town. So it's very overwhelming and stressful.
In 2011, the organization flew in conjoined twins from the Dominican Republic to Richmond to get separated by a team of VCU pediatric surgeons.
The World Pediatric Project sends surgical and diagnostic volunteers internationally to offer help to patients with special needs.
Current partner countries include Belize, Honduras, Guatemala, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Panama, and the Dominican Republic.
On average, the World Pediatric Project annually sends 30 medical teams to the Caribbean and Central America, while over 100 medical professionals volunteer. Director of International Teams, Sarah Irricane, travels overseas with the volunteer groups and says the days are hectic, but worth it.
It's always exhilarating to get back in the field and see the families, and just kind of rejuvenates you as to why you're doing the work you're doing here at home.
Work, which has increased the number of children helped every year since 2006. For VCU InSight, I'm Trey Herbert.
The World Pediatric Project recently opened a new cardiac surgery training program in the country of Panama to go along with the other center in the Dominican Republic.
It felt kind of tropical in Richmond earlier this month with record-breaking temperatures of 91 degrees, according to the National Weather Service. The sudden change had everyone breaking out the sunblock and craving cold treats. Richmond's Monroe Park and the VCU campus filled up with people soaking up the beautiful weather and having fun in the sun. The local street vendors also like the heat, like Soul Ice.
We've been out all week long. I have had Twitter feeds and so forth, people calling, you want to be out, so we're responding to the audience.
Weather experts are predicting that temperatures in central Virginia have evened out and should keep feeling more like spring. Summer-like temps aren't the only thing rolling into Richmond. Forget basketball courts. How about a court that will fill your belly? It brings local businesses and your appetite together. InSight's Samar Kawaja has more.
Food trucks are rolling their way back into Richmond. After last year's success, a group called RVA Street Foodies has created a coalition to unify food trucks within the community.
Richmond's been waiting for this. We've been getting calls all throughout the winter when we're going to open back up.
Visitors are invited to the food truck court, where many diverse vendors come under one roof. This year, visitors will notice new additions to some of their favorite and returning trucks.
So you're going to see a lot of vendors enhance their menus. They're bringing back your favorite delicacies that you've seen before.
In today's economy, more and more restaurants are shutting down. But food trucks, like this one, are banding together to form a closer, more economically sound food community.
We're hoping to make a new economy in Richmond of food trucks and surrounding areas.
20 food trucks are participating in this year's food court, but business owners are entering the arena with a collaborative mindset.
The goals are to attract as many people out here as possible, to create awareness of all the great chefs and variety that we have in the Richmond food truck scene.
Now it's not just something where it's a bunch of people getting together in a parking lot. It's a lot more than that. It's more community minded.
According to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, street food is eaten by almost 2.5 billion people every day. But for Richmond food lovers, the idea of being outdoors with family and friends is what makes food trucks more attractive.
It's a good place to put the kids and walk around and have a lot of choices placed together.
Andrea says the court is expecting to break last year's average of 1,000 people coming out each night. He says this court is only the start to a new face of street vending. For VCU InSight, I'm Samra Kawaja.
Richmond's food truck court will be held every Tuesday and Friday from 6 to 9 p.m. until September in the Virginia Historical Society parking lot just off the North Boulevard next to the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts.
Museums aren't the only place to see art. Here in Richmond, it's everywhere. InSight's Alina Sidnor is in the studio with the artist who put spray paint to brick.
I'm here with VCU film student Niels Westergaard. He's a stencil artist who just recently completed a project near the VCU Siegel Center. Thanks for being here, Niels. So you told me that you've been a stencil artist for about 8 years, and your most recent project was the mural on the side of Stuffy's Sandwich Shop. So what was your inspiration behind that?
Well, I tried to get the wall first. Once I had the wall, usually I kind of do like political stuff based on like news photos and stuff like that, but they tend to be kind of like jarring. People don't want that on, like, especially if it's like a business, they wouldn't want it on their wall. So I found this photo based on from a photographer on Flickr who's from like London, and instantly thought it was a girl blowing bubbles originally. And for the longest time, I thought that would be a great image to go for the wall, but it wasn't like enough. And I'm a big like Carl Sagan fan, and I was watching Cosmos one day, and it was like, oh wow, bubbles, planets, that'd be perfect.
Right. So what's the process of getting the walls? Like, is it more so you get in contact with the business owners to say like, hey, I want to do a mural on the side of your building, or is it more so the business owner getting in contact with you?
It's a little bit of both sometimes. I did a mural before that where they contacted me, like I went up to Baltimore for it and painted. But for this one, I eat at Stuffy's a lot, and it's like a really great wall. And I'd always seen it, and I was like, that's like way too perfect a wall. I don't know why someone hasn't painted it yet. And my friend also eats there a lot, and I know the owner as a result of that. And he just wanted to see what I wanted to do, and he was totally cool with it, and then we went with it.
So what is the process? Like, how long do these murals like usually take?
This one, I had all of spring break. The actual painting usually doesn't take that long, but the stencils are like really big pieces of paper that are really intricately cut. So it takes a long time to draw and cut them. So it took me working maybe 12 hours a day, like 4 or 5 days over spring break to cut the whole thing, and then 2 days to paint.
Okay, and I saw that you did a video for it. So why did you do a video for this project, or do you do a video for all your murals?
I would if I could. I'm a film student as well. I'm obviously really interested in film. So it made sense. I've been looking for a way to like merge the two for a while. And the artist who did the music for that is a good friend of mine because I'm part of the student hip hop organization. So I'm always trying to like push that as well because I do video for them. So I just set up a camera while I did it, and then afterwards it was something to play with.
Cool. So how has the community responded to your murals? Is it more negative or more positive feedback?
So far it's been positive. A lot of, I don't know, it was really, people would like come up to you and take a bunch of pictures of you while you're painting, and then like after each day I would go home and just like search the Instagram tag for RVA, and it was just like scary amounts of pictures of me and my friends, which was a little weird, but it was cool. But everyone I've talked to about it really likes it.
That's good. So you were in the G40 Summit last year, which was a big art show, and last year was the first year that they added murals. So tell me a little bit about that. What did you paint?
Last year, well, I've done it past 3 years. And I've always tried to at least paint the wall in my space. And this past year, it wasn't an outdoor mural, but we had like large paintings that we put on the inside. And I did like a, I'm gonna say 8 foot by 20 foot like piece in there. It was these big, Vesalius was this old Belgian anatomical drawer. It was this, or illustrator, and it was these huge, like, Vesalius dissecting a head.
So they're coming back this year to add about 20 more murals. Will we see some of your work there?
I don't know. I doubt it for G40 per se. There's also the RVA Street Art Festival, and I know they're looking for way more walls as well. But I keep painting anyway in the city. I did one yesterday, and trying to do another when I get back.
Okay. I've been speaking with local stencil artist Niels Westergaard. Thanks, Neil, for joining us.
Thank you.
According to the U.S. Department of Labor, fewer than 4% of Virginians are employed in environmentally friendly or green jobs. But some local businesses and organizations are trying to raise those numbers. InSight's Hope Lee has the story.
Jen Jackson rides her bike everywhere, and so do her employees. She owns River City Cleaning, a green cleaning company in Richmond. They travel from house to house, towing their homemade cleaning supplies by bike. The decision to have an environmentally friendly company was easy for Jackson, but she admits that choice isn't so simple for established businesses.
It's not as easy to change, and I think what we'll see is that change is happening, but it's just going to take a little bit of time.
River City Cleaning isn't the only business or organization in Richmond dedicated to green living. The apartment building behind me was built by Richmond's Better Housing Coalition and runs off of solar energy. They're a nonprofit dedicated to building high-quality, affordable housing. They built 7 apartment units in Church Hill this spring for low-income people over the age of 55. The total construction cost is about $850,000. They call the units net zero because they'll generate and store as much energy as they use. The panels on the roof produce electricity and hot water for the units, and they won't use electricity from Dominion Power unless the sun hasn't shone for a few days. Better Housing Coalition's construction project manager, Jeff Reynolds, says that while the technology is cutting edge, many businesses don't go green because of cost.
It would probably be a magnitude of at least a third more expensive than a standard system. And so the return on investment would take quite a few years.
The Better Housing Coalition expects the units to be net zero for about 9 months out of the year. For VCU InSight, I'm Hope Lee.
River City Cleaning says it hopes to offer environmentally friendly gardening services soon. Richmond's Better Housing Coalition will open more green apartments this June.
There's now an easier way to enjoy the historic attractions of downtown Richmond and neighborhoods like Jackson Ward. Tourists and residents can now walk the 6-mile path dubbed the Liberty Trail by the Greater Richmond Chamber and others. They say they received lots of complaints from residents.
There was a lot of sort of, okay, you need to take a right and then do this, so we thought, wouldn't it be helpful if there was some sort of marked, suggested walking route?
160 volunteers spray-painted markers to help better define the trail, with donations from Pleasance Hardware. The Richmond Greater Chamber says it hopes to start a Liberty Trail Foundation and raise money to replace those markers with more permanent ones in the near future.
You may have seen this in videos on YouTube, in particular his cover of the hit Eminem song, Love the Way You Lie. It landed him more than 1.5 million views. He didn't rap the song, he played it on his violin. InSight's Candace Smith is in the studio with the musician who isn't just playing Beethoven.
I'm here with VCU junior Eric Stanley. He's a violinist who's turned heads by covering pop songs. Eric, thanks for being here.
No problem.
So you come from a music background, right? Your mom plays the piano, your brother plays the piano, right?
Yes.
So how did you get into the violin?
My brother, he was playing piano in church, and he would bring me along to churches in Richmond, Chesapeake, and he said, Eric, just play your violin. And at the time, I was about 8th grade, so I had been playing for about 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest, I wasn't that great. I was just playing like single notes.
Yeah.
It's kind of like airborne, but that helped develop my ear, and I think that's something that you really can't learn with learning the classical way. Classical is cool for learning technique, but I think you have to be able to just be in that environment. I learned church music. I learned how to flow with different musicians, drummers, So you don't necessarily need a piano. You can play with just a drummer and a violin.
Nice. So speaking of classical, how do you take a classical instrument like the violin and play covers for rap songs by Eminem and stuff? How do you incorporate that?
Well, with rap, rap is singing. So you can take how they stress the notes, how they stress each vowel, each word, and you can portray that on the violin. I like to think that playing a violin, it's like you play it from within here. If you just kind of like play the notes, people be like, oh, that's cool. His fingers are moving, but they won't really feel anything from it.
Right.
Yeah.
So your first video, the Trey songs, Say Ah, that was an accident, right? You were trying to test out the...
Well, I had bought my new mic, saved up. It was about $50 from eBay. Bought from a retailer in Shanghai. So it's crossed my fingers because eBay, you know, it's kind of like, just hope is trust. You know?
Right.
And that was my first microphone. I bought a M-Box. That's how you record it. It's like a sound card for the computer. And so I was just testing it out. And I was in my room and turned the camera on and started just filming around. I was like, oh. I had my headphones on and I was like, that sounds kind of cool. It's my first time ever like recording something on like the computer. Yeah.
And that ended up with 100,000 views, right?
Yeah.
Like in a day. Now you have over 20 videos, at least 20, over 100,000. And you have a few over millions, 1.5 million views, right?
Yeah.
So earlier we heard you play something for us. So we're just going to take a minute and go back and listen to that real quick.
Okay.
Okay, so that was your new song that debuts April 20th?
29th.
29th, I'm sorry. So can you tell us about the song, how it came about?
This song, I've been working on this song for almost 3 years, and I picked it up, and my friend Michael Turner, he also plays piano, and Brandon Jones here from VCU, he's a piano major too, and I worked on this song, and I kind of put it down, and I got discouraged, to be honest. So I continued putting out videos and doing shows and stuff, but it wasn't until I was able to have my mind clear, you know, like spiritually and mentally and everything, that I was able to finish this song. So I call it Walking Across the Road, like it's a journey across the road.
Nice. Well, I've been speaking with violinist Eric Stanley. Eric, thank you so much for being here.
No problem.
April is also Distracted Driving Awareness Month, and VCU police have driven it onto the VCU campus. InSight's Niecy Chisholm has more about how they're literally putting students in the driver's seat.
Meet Catherine Carr, a former texter and driver who recently paid the price for doing so.
I was texting and I wasn't paying attention and the light had turned green, so the guy behind me went to go and I didn't go yet, so he hit me and I blamed it on him, but it was really me because I could have gone.
To avoid accidents like Carr's, the VCU Police Department is informing students of how to stay safe on the road during the entire month of April for what is known as Distracted Driver Awareness Month. VCU Traffic Police Officer Sean Kelly is in charge of VCU's Distracted Driving Awareness campaign and is taking it very seriously.
And this year we're doing a big push for Distracted Driver Month, Distracted Driver Awareness Month. Starting July 1, it's going to change to a primary offense, so it's good that we get the information out now.
Students were recently invited to get a hands-on feel of the dangers of texting and driving by using a simulator. This was the first time VCU provided a simulator to Monroe Park campus.
Distracted driving is defined as any activity that could divert a person's attention away from the task of driving, according to the official government website for distracted driving. And while things like eating, grooming, or messing with your CD or radio player are distracting, texting is the most dangerous because it requires your manual, visual, and cognitive attention.
VCU police say those who text and drive are 23 times more likely to be involved in an accident. And for those who engage in texting and driving, Officer Kelly has this advice.
If you need to text and or call somebody, just go ahead and pull over. It only takes a second. There's plenty of places. It's just not worth it because you're putting your life and other people's lives in danger.
Students at VCU and the surrounding community are welcomed to learn more about the dangers of distracted driving all month long. For VCU InSight, I'm Lucy Chisholm.
Check out the next distracted driving awareness events on April 24th and then on the 28th through the 30th.
And finally, it was a dark and stormy night.
Or at least that's what it was on the stage for VCU Theater's recent presentation of Sweeney Todd.
InSight's Talisha Williams has the behind-the-curtain look.
Thrilling.
Living hell, a trumped-up charge.
Dark.
Lost. My arm is completely dead.
And nightmarish. Those are just a few words that critics use to describe the play Sweeney Todd. This is the first time Sweeney Todd will be performed by students in VCU Theater. The play opens on April 6th and will run until April 21st at the W.E. Singleton Center for the Performing Arts. VCU Theater Director Barry Bell says the play has a lot of history and is not based off of Tim Burton's popular 2007 horror film.
It's the same story. And the story that was told in the movie is this story. It's the same story, but the movie was the last thing. It's been around for, over 100 years.
Bell also says the play is a melodrama, which means theater with sound. The show has a lot of technical effects. He says this can create many difficulties for the actors. Although the cast members range from VCU freshmen to seniors, they all agree that acting in the play was not an easy task.
I play a character much more older than my age. He's in his late 30s, early 40s, and clearly I'm not. I'm a 19-year-old college student.
What she has gone through it's so sad. I mean, she lives on the streets, and I, as somebody who has never done that, it's definitely been a challenge.
Despite these struggles, the cast members continue to work hard as opening night approaches. And this is where the magic takes place, as actors make their characters come alive, putting the audience on an emotional thrill ride. The play is dark and scary, but the ending has a twist that might make the audience shed a few tears for the crazed villain Sweeney Todd. For VCU InSight, I'm Talisha Williams.
According to their website, VCU Theater's next season includes Hairspray and One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
And that's all for this edition of VCU InSight.
Check us out online at insight.vcu.edu.
Thanks for watching. I'm Allie Nasta.
And I'm Shelly Andrews. We leave you with some more sounds from violinist Eric Stanley. Good night, everybody.